So we are currently wandering through Louis, not sure how to say it. And I'm really excited because this is number one, the first video I've done this season of urban sketching, i.e. when it's warm enough to be outside, albeit in an Arctic coat. And number two, because I'm really excited to show you my latest and greatest addition to my outside sketching kit. So without further ado, let's take that excitement and continue to wander around. That is the little town, and we're going to go explore it and find some stuff to paint. So I've been for a walk and discovered some alleys. I discovered how windy it is on the seaside as well. So we found this alley instead. I'm going to pitch up here for half an hour and do some drawing. So my very simple setup for sketching outside at the moment, I've got my chair, but I could also stand up. I've got this, which is my Just Go Sketching little sketching companion, which has a magnetic strip which holds even my palette quite nicely, with a single clip to hold that in place. And from there, we can sketch. It's as simple as that. And we have in front of me a rather fascinating scene. Now, it's very challenging in terms of awkward perspective. And so we need to do a little bit of testing. So I'm going to do a 1 or 2 minute thumbnail just to the side and really test out my scene and also do a bit of sighting of my perspective. So to get any line in the scene, we can literally just hold our pen out like this. And if we hold it against the line, we bring it down onto our page and that line will stay the same and that will be the right angle. What I'm doing in my vision is I'm taking my pen, I'm lining it up. So I line it up with this vertical line and I can see how big it is relative to this vertical line. I can see what angle this roof line is versus the angle of this roof line, or this one which is going the other way and is almost vertical, and I can only find that out by popping my pen there. So we've got lots of steep angles, and one thing I can do is I can lift my pen up in front of my face, hold it against the angle, and then bring it down and find the exact angle that my line should be, so I can confirm that this line is correct. And then I can do the same for other lines, where I can just go from there and just work out the rest by eye, which is what I'm going to mostly do. So I've got one angle and the rest kind of just flow from there. And you can see going to spill out over my thumbnail, but that is absolutely okay because that's why I'm doing a thumbnail. So you can see I've spilled out the side. I probably want to condense it a bit more to get it in this area. Now, the other thing I want to do is make sure I've got my vertical dimensions in, which is kind of windows and doors. They feel about right. And I'm after about right. Not after perfect, I'm after about right. Then come down here, got a steep little sort of framing element. So I'm going to include that. And we've got really steep perspective coming towards us. Quite chaotic bottom of the building. I think that's actually enough of a practice. The next thing to do in this is work out the shadows. We've got sort of deep shadow at the back, lesser shadow here, and lots of lovely light up here. We actually have a background as well, some trees. And there we go. Now it all feels very compressed in here because it is very compressed. It's all in a tiny thumbnail. So let's see what happens if we take that, we decompress it, and we just go for it, most importantly. Now this time I'm going to start in the middle, because if I start in the middle, I can make sure I just sort of get a few details in, get a few textures in, but I'm also going to keep it to size, because if the middle is small enough, everything else will sort of flow from there. And that'll be different for different people. That's how it works for me, but that might not be how it works for you. Need to cross-check lots. So the bottom of this building here, it's kind of funny, it goes down a big slope. So actually the bottom of that building meets a doorway about here. So we can use relative measurement, just cross-checking where our bits and bobs are going to get it feeling more accurate than it might otherwise. Coming forward, we've got our door here. Really, really dramatically steep perspective. So it kind of comes all the way down to here. And there we go. So we've built a lot of it already. Coming up here, we've got a really tall building. So here we need to measure. We've got this, and how many of this unit go into here. So I make this building, and again we can use our pen in front of our head and just cross-check, and I make it about 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. I'm getting it to about there. It's got this wonderful texture as well, so we'll get that texture in these first few lines. And by doing all of this, I'm going to come up, I'm going to get the chimney. The chimney is the tallest part of my seam. So now I've already fixed that problem I had in the first version that I didn't quite fit. And come down here. Just start building a few of the details as we move through the scene. And it gets easier and easier. When you get these first frameworks in, suddenly you've got so much detail to build on. So I can go, right, got this edge of the roof, I need to come down to about here to get the next roof, which crosses over with this shape here. So suddenly it just sort of starts to work rather than being a struggle, rather than everything needing to be done from scratch. Same here, we've got another roof which crosses over to about here. So all we're doing every time now is just cross-checking relative measurements, one measurement against another, and your scene will end up sort of approximately right. And again, I would really encourage people to think about their sketching as trying to get it good enough. Perfection is very much overrated, and when people search for perfection, they often end up with just this rigid, not very exciting scene, and rather than a perfect scene which they're envisaging was going to result. Now coming forward, I'm going to leave some of this detail out for now, because maybe this is where we stop focusing. We focus more on this as our focal point. And working out your focal point is really important. I could be here for hours trying to draw every brick and stone and detail, or I can spend a bit of time on what really interests me. And that might not be immediately apparent. You might just go, right, this scene is interesting, and then you start, and then you find, oh, actually what I like is this little bollard in the middle, you spot these little things. So there's my little bollard, which I'm going to add. From this bollard come a load of interesting signs, which have got light glowing on them, and actually cross over a lot of my hard work already. That is fine. This kind of busyness that results from one object being drawn on top of another one, many people, including myself, find fascinating, find really interesting, rather than, doesn't look like a mistake. It might now, but it won't by the end. By the end it will look like a clever decision. So we'll work that one out when we get there. Now, just need to balance out the scene a little bit more. Because we started in the middle, one of the risks is that you need to end up working out, well, how far do I spread? And there's risks to everything. Every different approach, you'll find it easy, someone else will find it hard, Everyone will find something differently challenging about a different approach. The risk with starting in the middle for me is that you end up with something slightly unbalanced, so you need to work out ways to spread the scene out. So here, I'm going to bring in this framing element, this other building which kind of looms over. Get a few of it's got these really big sort of stones, bricks, this kind of real definite texture here. So I'm going to get that in as a starting point, because then there's a little A-frame board here. So this is adding more interest down around here. Then this gives me the line for my pavement, which is coming in here. Now notice I did this bold, because this I'm certain about. Everything else I've sort of yet to make up my mind about. So that's why everything else I've done really like. Coming here, we've got the next kind of framing element, which is actually the building I'm sat right next to, with ridiculously steep perspective. It's really mind-bending to work out, but I think that is, again, a good enough approach. So now we've got the scene mapped out, and what I'm going to do, because I'm outside, I need to hurry up and add more ink. Because if I add watercolour now, I'm going to have to wait a long time for this to dry. Instead, I'll add more ink now, and then we'll do watercolour just on top, just one layer of watercolour, maybe with some mixed media to increase the richness of that. And that helps me save a bit of time and not have to sit in an alley or in the middle of a street for a lot longer than I want to. So, step 2, having mapped out the scene, is to pick out those bold touches. We said, or I said, I like this. And as I make it bolder, it will start to sit in front of everything else. So less like a mistake and an afterthought, and more like a purposeful decision. So already it has come to the very forefront of our scene. You can do this similar thing, not quite the same, but a similar thing with some of these rooftops. These little windows I didn't get in to start with, they can come in at this point as well. This line is quite a clear line coming down, so that I'll build in. Got this funny, it's like a garage door but in miniature here as well. Across here I think it's important that we have the street. It kind of explains what's going on. If we have this obvious furrow through the through the scene, just these little paving slabs going horizontally. Now we hopefully understand that this and this are the exits to a street. Then a couple more of our roof lines. A little bit of a chimney up here. Got some nice bricks on it, so we can again start working out where our feature's going to be on our sort of second pass through this. And you know, you'll get a moment of magic, like there's little seagulls just decided to sit here. So there we go, now we have a little seagull. And I could have made that up, but I didn't have to, because he's decided just to sit there for me now. Very kind of him. Here, we can flesh this out a little bit more. This building, really like rough. Don't even know how to describe it. Big rough stones. Same here actually, so really make something of that texture. Get in these definite horizontals. These are nice marks, these horizontals which are sort of fixing the scene down today. This is like a black edge. There's a funny little shape here. And last but not least, all these really steep, I mean steep in terms of perspective, these windows are all sort of, you can barely see them except for little slits of dark. And here we got some plant pots with a tree. So I'm going to make something of that. And that's kind of brought the scene into structure. We can now like visualize, hopefully you can see what I'm seeing or what my brain is interpreting by what's in front of me far more clearly just from a few bold lines. And that I'd call step 2. It means I can put my pen away and I get to show my fancy clip again. I say fancy, you can get these in all sorts of shops, but they're brilliant because you can clip your pens, your brushes on like that. So all you need is a couple of clips. And then, keeping this secured down, I've got with me, these are my favourite water brushes. They're by Derwent, they have this huge area of water, and you get a big flat brush. I've also got a more traditional round brush one here. And with this, I can lay down water, not like I would with a proper, nice, really lovely brush, but it's the closest thing I found. Don't forget, tissue, really important, otherwise you end up with a mess, even with especially with these water brushes. And our clip again can just hold that for us. So now we make something of this. I'm going to make sure my brush is clean. I'm going to start with these interesting blues. So with these water brushes, they do pick up a lot of murky colour. So it's really important just to spend time between colours, making sure they're nice and clean. Otherwise you'll end up with something disappointing, which you weren't expecting. And it's not that it's rubbish necessarily, but often just the difference between what we expected and what happens is enough to make us feel it's rubbish. So just spending a bit of time can prevent that disappointment. These blues I'm going to sort of pull through because we've got lots of shadow in this funny little alley I'm currently inhabiting. So I'm going to use blues and a little bit of red that I've got up on my palette here already, just to make a nice sort of purplish shadow. I think that's working quite nicely already. Just gently, gently. And as we get into the pavement here, or the tarmac rather, bring in a little bit of indigo and it will become much more tarmac coloured. And the direction of my brush strokes hopefully will just, again, impart the kind of horizontal nature of here that's flowing through here. And there's a lot of power in how we use our brush. The direction of our brush strokes can be really important to someone else's interpretation of the scene. So just think about it as you're doing it. Which way do I want people to interpret what's going on here? Here we've got a little black edge, but actually we're starting to get into areas now which are light. So we've got here a white face, a completely white face. So I'm going to just touch in a tiny bit of yellow because it's really brightly reflecting white light, and I like a tiny bit of yellow to kind of show that sunshine. That's just me. You know, you might want to leave that as the brightest thing and just pop in a few shadows where you've got shadows in all the textured bricks. Down here, because it's the same building, but it's in less sunlight, I'm going to add a little bit of that yellow mixed with a little bit of our kind of murky colours, just to make it feel darker, because there's a definite shadow coming down this side. And by just dabbing my brush a little bit, we're going to make those colours quite busy, which is often something we want to avoid. But hopefully here, it's a shortcut to showing all the texture that's going on. Along here we've got shadow again, just coming to about here. And it's going to change dramatically, even in the short time I'm sketching, but about there. The other side, the other building's very yellowy, reddy, with a little green tinge actually at the bottom. So I'm going to pop in some green. And I want these to all do their thing, to like blend and mix together. So I'm just going to allow the water to blend, to move, to do its thing, as I said. Now, I think more touches with this big brush would be fun, but may not help me move towards a finished piece very quickly. So I'm going to pop this chappy to one side and get out this one, which is just a slightly smaller brush. Still a sort of push pen, still a water brush. Get a nice flow of water just coming out. And here again, we need to control the amount of water and make sure it's nice and clean as we move forward. But I'm going to use this to start pulling out some specific details. This door, for example, has a nice red tinge to it. And then I'll find some of that red in a couple of other places, like one of these signs is a brownish, warmish colour, so I'm going to decide it's red today. Up here, this chimney is red. It actually is today, but all chimneys in my sketching are normally red. I just like it like that. Can even touch in bits of red coming down this to make it interesting, and find some reds maybe reflecting down in these yellows in this shadow. Ways to just make things a bit more exciting, I guess.
Oh yeah, you alright?
Yeah, good,
Just
thanks.
being nosy at your intricate work. Nice.
Intricate or mad, either way. Found my alley.
Nice.
Cheers. And there you go. You often get interrupted, and I got a little bit of an interruption there, but people are normally very kind, and they just want to see. And it doesn't matter, you know, where you're at in your painting. They'll make up their own mind about it, but they're normally very, very kind to you, to your face. At least that's my experience. Now coming down here, got some warmth again in the background. And I want to be cautious at this point that I'm not going to be taking up too much of the light. Got lovely light flowing through this image, and I want to keep it that way, and I want to keep it nice and simple so that I can finish it, because I want to go and do another one. I've got a lovely scene I'm eyeing up, which is like overlooking the seaside. Well, actually not the seaside, but the harbour. And I want to do this one justice, but I also want to have time to move on and do other things and experiment in other ways. So part of that is just working out the steps we need to take to get it to that point that it feels finished enough. And I'm not one who is scared perhaps of adding more later. So if I want to, if I look at this later in my sketchbook, I want to add a bit of something, I can. I'm one who's actually scared of adding too much now. So I'll end up underworking something so that I can just be sure that I didn't do too much. At least when I want to capture a nice memory or something like that. Like today. Nice little holiday, a little sort of vista away from reality, real life. Just sat here in a Cornish alley, having taken my fill of a Cornish pasty. So a few more shadows. To get to that point, what do we need to do? Well, for me, this one needs a bit more structure, a few more shadows, things which will suggest a bit of detail. A little bit more of these kind of blues pooling down here. Just isn't, often we get too busy too quickly, but actually for me, this alley isn't, it's incredibly busy in reality. So it's not busy enough to my mind yet. Little bit of green, dangerous to add an extra colour at this stage, but I'm looking to make it more busy. And we also have some greens in the background. We've got these kind of trees in the distance, so why not? We did actually have a touch of green in here, but it's kind of faded away. So adding a bit of green, yeah, I think that's done an okay job. We can add a bit of green to the bottom here, the kind of ragged bottom, suggest little plants growing out. And what else? What else are we missing? Well, I'm going to just get a bit more darker neutral colours and redefine some more of these shadows, I think. Just a few of these shadows. Got shadows here, deep shadows and darks and blacks and things like that. And they're really needed to make something feel like it's got shape and it's finished. That might be a bit too warm over there, so I'm going to neutralise that brown tinge with a bit of indigo. And there we go. Get some negative painting going around these signs. And now it's feeling much closer. Already, just that little touch, making it feel much closer to finished for me. But it's not finished yet. So I would call this step 4. We did the loose colours, that was step 3, and now we've done the bolder colours. Also while sort of thinking about the balance, what's going on, thinking about it carefully. I think I can get some more textures in here. We've got these like bold textured bricks. Let's just get some of that in there. Let's be brave. Okay. Then we're getting there. I promise we're getting there. I can go and rescue Tash from looking after Betty all this time. And what I'm going to do, I said we might do a bit of mixed media. So what I've got in my bag are these, which people really want to see. I've done a couple of videos on them, and everyone says they love using them. So can I do some more videos on them? And yes, I can. Here we go. So what I'm going to use, these are Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2 wax pastels, but they're water soluble. So wax is typically found in crayons, not pastels, so I call them crayons. And with these, we can add these opaque marks. So I can come in, we've got these lovely pinks, so that's why I'm using a pink one here. And I can add this kind of texture that I think this wall is crying out for. I use these same pinks just in a couple of other places again to balance it out. And then I'll move on to another colour. So let's pick something. I don't look at the actual colour name. Oh, that big blob of yellow, let's get rid of that. There we go. As long as it's watery, you'll be able to get rid of it. I don't look at the colour name, I look at what it looks like. Because when I put this colour on the page, it's the same as this. It doesn't really change, which is very convenient, unlike watercolours, which can change quite a lot. It's not working hugely for me, so I'm going to move on. Now sepia, one of my favourite colours in this series. That's going to come in and try and help a little bit with the murky feeling, and again with the texture of this tarmac. Now we have to be careful, these are opaque, so they're going to sit in front of everything else, and that could cover up a lot of our lovely stuff if we're not careful. But they're also water soluble, so if we go too far we can wet them, and I will do a little bit of wetting them just to see what happens. Now we don't want to do too many of these either, we could easily overdo this. So here's a little bit of my golden light coming into the scene. a little bit into here, and then come back with my water brush, make sure it's clean. Like I said before, these guys have a habit of not being very clean. We can take these textures and we can soften them out, we can move them around, we can turn them into much more of a kind of soft glow. A bit more water on the page and it will run more easily. Same into here, we can just take some of that murkiness and make it less edgy, less busy. Into here as well, just soften out some of these little pink marks, soften things out, end up hopefully creating something very interesting. This bird, he needs a bit of shadow, doesn't he? There we go. Now he's like our dark overseer. He can have a bit of, if I lift up a bit of these pastels, he's now got a little bit of pastel in him, a little bright colour into him, as well as the dark overseer look, as he's unfortunately been christened. Over here, right, what we can see is happening here is my page is breaking down a little bit, and that's because I'm using sketching paper, not cotton. If I was using my cotton, I could keep going for hours, but I can't because I'm using my sketching paper. So I'm going to stop faffing and fiddling there. I'm going to try one more risky thing. Let's see how it goes. So I carry around with me this is my little sketching bag. It's where all of these things have come from, and in there I have things like an emergency fineliner. So with my emergency fineliner, what I can do is I can go in here more safely than with a fountain pen, because it's still a bit wet. A fountain pen would bleed everywhere if it's still a little bit wet. Found a fineliner. This is 0.3 by Faber-Castell. A fineliner instead will still just give us a reasonably fine line. Still much bolder than if it was a totally dry page, but still a reasonably fine line. And this allows us to just go, oh right, this has gone a bit wild. Oh, where's my signpost gone? And I can bring it back, because a simple bold outline will bring these things back. Now I was contemplating, do we want writing on this or not? I'm going to wait to the end and decide, because those little details can do a lot, and they can also do a lot in a kind of negative sense. They can be little regrets that we wish we'd just left it. But let's see where we get to. A couple more of these details, just they felt necessary to me. I can even add some careful hatching. I can make these plant pots a little bolder. All kind of bringing the focus in here with more darker lines in this area. This is kind of my focal area, with maybe secondary focuses leading up and across. That's my semi-scientific way of thinking about it. And what I say about thinking about art is whatever works for you. It's great if it's, what everyone else thinks, but it's even better if it actually works for you. Coming over here, get a little bit more into that. And I think we can also suggest the perspective a lot more by having bricks kind of steeply angling that way and this way. It shows that there's this big change in plane going on. And do we want any more textures going on here? I'm going to overdo it very soon, so let's just hatch in this sign to make it clear that it's behind there. I'm going to leave those greens. I was considering an outline. I'm going to leave them. And then what I might do, let's just dibble and dabble in here. I'm not going to write. I'm going to pretend I've written. Even better, because my handwriting is awful. And by pretending I've written, no one will know that. Now, reinforce this line, reinforce this pavement. And most important, give it your signature. And this is Lou or Louis. And I'm going to put by the pasty shop, because that means I'm remembering my most important memory of the day, which is what I ate. So there you go. My little step-by-step guide to using a bit of mixed media, and my most magic addition to my outdoor sketching set, which is this, the Cornish edition, in fact. So it's a sketching companion from Just Go Sketching.